John, you've had great experience in Queensland, and coking coal makes a lot of money for that province in Australia. What is the opportunity now for Southern Africa to combine to actually start producing the world's coking coal?
Australia now supplying 2/3 of the world's market, which is about 170, I think, odd 170 million tonnes per annum. But certainly, if you take Mozambique, which has been touted as the next Queensland in many articles, and you add the potential for at Limpopo, and our assets now that we're referring to, and you add Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe turns, you're talking there potentially anything up to 50 plus. You know, when you add the three together, then you're looking at something really significant.
And you coming in on the South African side, that won't equal the same potential as Mozambique, will it?
It doesn't appear so at the moment. Certainly, we've got certainly in our projects that I'm talking about now, we have the potential to get up to about a 10 million tonne per annum exports in the next 10 years. But I'm sure that as we develop these projects further and exploration and so on, that maybe that can be doubled over the next 20 years. But certainly the potential is significant. And
what about the infrastructure on the ground, the rail and the port? You talk of quite a lot of efficiency but high costs.
Yes, well, I think the phase 4 expansion, which will be the 10 or 20 million tonnes in Maputo, and the rail that will then need to feed that from Limpopo, which is 10 or 20 million rand, that's going to be a different game. That's going to be a different ball game in that it needs substantial investment. And we are discussing other mechanisms like private sector funding and partnerships and all that, which hopefully, and there's a lot of appetite for that kind of funding in the world, for that type of funding. So hopefully that will enable it to be a lot more competitive and more competitively priced than some of the high prices we're paying at the moment.
How out of kilter are your rail tariffs?
The current tariffs that we're paying through Maputo, which is coming off a very small base. So it used to be a very high unit cost. Now they've doubled their output, and we've trebled ours, and yet we've seen our costs continue to go up. So we haven't seen any benefit yet of the extra volume and the extra capacity that's going in there. And I think that's our issue that we need to take up with Transnet, because they're still pricing it almost as if this was a very small sideline that just doesn't pay for them. But now certainly we've gone from 1 to 3 million, we're going to 3 million tonnes per annum, and we're still paying very, very high rates, which are not globally competitive.
And South Africa is looking at its legislation. How can it be more enabling? You've had to fight through this red tape like a knight, and obviously this affects business. You can't go ahead because there's so much regulatory hurdle to jump over. What would you like to see as an enabling environment here to help Southern Africa prosper in this coking coal and coal arena?
The ministers certainly seem fully aware of the problem. They acknowledge it, they've identified it. I've been to dinners and meetings where both ministers, and I'm talking about the mineral resources and environment, acknowledge that the streamlining needs to happen, that we need to have more clarity, we need to have more consistency. And I know the goal that has come out from the ministers, they've said they want to have a one-stop shop where when a mine gets its license to operate, it'll have everything. And that's the mining right, the environmental permits, the water license, etc. And that the uncertainty of getting that has been reduced, because it's damaging our prospects for mining in this country substantially, as we know, and we keep on sliding down that table.
Meantime, you're facing an anomaly. A lot of people haven't got water license, and you made to now jump another high hurdle. Are you going to be able to do that in time to get Vele moving this year?
I believe so. I think we're 90% there. It is unfortunate that we have to go through this hurdle. I think hopefully it will also force some sort of ultimate amendment to that act, because it's actually potentially pretty damning for the industry if it was applied, because people could run around putting appeals and suspending mines, and that's certainly not something that one can live with, I would have thought.
Meanwhile, you're saying there are three words: contiguous situation, scale, and optionality, which coal miners need, and you seem to be developing that. So what could we expect from you in the next 5 years?
That's what's exciting. When I looked at that slide where we've put all those assets together, and when you've got contiguous properties, you're able to be a lot more flexible about the scale of the mine. You can take all the things into account, whether it's environmental issues, whether it's community issues, and even the results of the geological of the exploration itself. And when you look at that map, we've got the potential to, over the next decade to 2 decades, please, to probably bring on stream 4 or 5 really big mines if the logistics and the market can take it.
And obviously that's going to require money. We see we need an appetite from shareholders to keep going. You've lost some of your Australian backing, but you've gained it elsewhere. And tell us how confident you are that the shareholders will continue to back you.
Look, we've had some great shareholders. They've stuck with us through a very, very rough patch. I think just the fact that we have made a big clean-up this year, we have put ourselves on a more sound footing. We will be going over the next week to talk to these investors and say, look, this is where we are. We have the great potential. We are getting more government support than we've ever had before. And so I think hopefully then will stick with us, because certainly they've been battered, like many people have, but certainly the CoAL of Africa share price has been significantly battered in the process. I see us, we're on the turning point now.
People should have a vision, because they need to work towards that. If I had to come back to you in 10 years' time, what, with ideal regulatory environments and cash and everything else, could we see in Southern Africa in the coking coal space?
I think we could see at least 10 million tons of coking coal being exported, and I'm not, and I hope that all of those mines will be at the same level of collaboration that we're seeing with Vele in terms of Department of Environment, irrespective of whether we're close to a park or not. I think the Limpopo, there is a fear that sort of uncontrolled mining expansion will lead to the same sort of issues that we have in Mpumalanga. I think we can avoid that, but also have significant coal growth. If we're exporting 10 million tons in 10 years' time and getting $250 to $300 a ton for it, that's going to be doing a lot of good to that province. And if we can be doing it at the same level of cooperation that we've gone into at Vele, I think it'll also be great for the country.
And I just wanted to also look Southern Africa-wise with the Brazilians coming into Mozambique, and we now Rio Tinto giving you Chipuli, but moving across the border. What could be this total picture?
One of the reasons why actually Mozambique has attracted multi-billion-dollar investments by Rio and Vale is that their government has been very proactive in attracting that investment, and we're now seeing this big growth for the cocoa industry, and certainly Maputo, Mozambique and coal, we're talking 20-30 million tons of exports in the next couple of decades. We need to catch up with that, because we've certainly got the potential. We've got a rail line in place. It needs upgrading. There's a rail line in place already that could certainly get up to 10 million without a lot of substantial capital expenditure. There's a few areas of upgrading required. So we need to get going, and hopefully in the next year or two we will be.
And if they don't get their coking coal from Southern Africa, where are they going to get it from? Australia's still got a long way to go, but I mean, is there a depletion factor, and is the demand growing?
Well, that's one of the fundamentals that is helping coking coal. It's not as widespread as thermal, and good coking coal deposits are not widely found out. I think we almost count them on one hand. We know Australia's 2/3. We know there's something in the middle of Mongolia, and we know the US and Canada both produce a bit. But Mozambique and Limpopo and Zimbabwe is a chain that over the next 20 years, that we can really develop and add a massive wealth to this part of the world.